How do you deal with negativity in an organization? Uniform violations, that's always a good one, right? Uniform violations are a good one. Uniform violations are always like we talked about earlier. Take somebody aside, correct it. Commodore Mallison, our new National Commodore, won't mind in the least if the newest member takes him aside and says, Commodore Mallison, there's a problem with the uniform, and I point it out to you. He will thank that person upside down because he won't be embarrassed when he gets on stage, right? Because somebody will stop him.
Remember the blue teeth?
Oh,
Story of the blue teeth?
I think I do remember that. What was that story again?
Well, I don't remember which admiral it was, but one of the admirals was in a Fed train with his wife, and Captain Montgomery happened to be sitting next to her at the same table with his wife. And someone had decided that it would be nice to have a Coast Guard cake, and it had all this icing on it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was blue.
Yeah.
And so, the admiral's wife, how about a cake with blue icing? And after she finished eating it, Jim Montgomery was over there and he said, her teeth were blue. And said, she doesn't know it. She's visiting with everybody else at the table. It's a round table with 8 or 10 chairs, and she's visiting with everybody. And Captain Montgomery said, and he happened to know her real well anyway. He told her by her first name. And she said, well, what? And he said, come here. So they got up and walked over to the corner, and then she left and went to the restroom, and she came back, and he said, even if I hadn't known her real well, I still would have had to tell her she had blue teeth.
A Bluetooth issue.
Look, yeah. Little things like that.
I'm
right?
sorry for the interruption.
No, it's a good story. But it exactly brings about the point. Chain of leadership doesn't apply when you're trying to help somebody out, right? And God forbid, don't ever dress somebody down in front of somebody else. There's nothing to be gained by that in the world, other than it makes you look like a meanie. You look like the class bully now. The other person feels terrible, and everybody else, thinks both of you are jerks, right? That's how that works. Rumor mongering, that goes on. Jumping the chain, we just talked about jumping the chain. There are times to do it. If you're not getting a response, if you're not getting the answer you need, then yeah, it's time to jump the chain and get the answer and notify the people that you did not get an answer for some reason. There may be a perfectly good reason for it, okay? But, if you're not getting the answer you need in a timely fashion, yes, of course you jump the chain, absolutely. Email use. When you send something to somebody, okay, let's explain the difference. If I send Pat Cooney an email, and I CC his vice and maybe a couple other people on it, the person I sent the email to, I'm expecting to send a response or take an action, right? To means it's for you, you are to respond to this, or whatever the case may be. Courtesy copy, right, the CC, basically means information so you know what's going on, but I don't expect to hear back from you, okay? Because when you're CC'd in something, that does not mean you respond to it, okay? That means it's just a CC. BCC is saying, I'm too chicken to call you a jerk to your face, so I'm going to call you to a jerk in an email, and I'm going to blind carbon copy your boss on it. Okay? BCCs are typically used only if you have a large number of people you're trying to distribute something to, and you don't want to have 8,500 email addresses all broadcast to everybody, right? Where you want to maintain, you have a large group you're doing a broadcast to, but you don't want to broadcast to everybody else's email address. For example, when we do our flight operations, or a couple things we may send out where there's several federal agencies involved, we use BCC because obviously these federal agencies may not want their personal email addresses getting out to everybody in the world, okay? So BCC is really when you send something to yourself, BCC to a number of, addresses, you're just trying to protect people's privacy. That's really what you're doing there. BCC can be used in very mean ways too, like the example I just gave you. Like, Daryl, I got an issue with you, and I want to make sure that, your mom knows about it, right? Okay, so I put her in BCC, but you don't know I did that, okay? So if you're using BCC just to be mean like that, that's obviously a non-starter. I think we all have better etiquette than that, but that does happen. Now, I've gotten many emails, just in my 2 years, my 2 years plus as division commander, where somebody was dressing somebody down in an email, BCCing me, you know, about the issue. It happens, okay? Because I don't know what they're trying to impress you or what the case may be. Don't ever do that. Forwarding without permission. Sometimes you will get an email from somebody, for example, from me, and it'll say, please forward to your members. I think those are pretty obvious. Sometimes I'll be sending you information about something, and it's not for rebroadcast. So specifically, unless something is obviously something you could forward to the other membership, ask permission before you forward something. Because there may be something going on there. For example, every week we get, the aviation side gets the list of the current, everybody gets the list of the current waypoints, right? The current checkpoints for navigation. That's not something you broadcast to every member in the system. And the flotilla commander would forward that to every member of his flotilla. You know, it's just, that's for official use only kind of stuff. We have things that are like that, so be careful when you forward information without permission of the originating source. It should be all common sense when you see it, but you know what I'm saying. So these are kind of the things that happen. This is an email as a division commander. You know, Pat will love this. She'll be in this chain now. This is a fun one from the Commodore I got, saying about you writing the auxiliary chain of leadership, understanding requirements set forth. This is mandated. This is why we had to do a training session at flotilla meetings on chain of leadership 101. Because somebody decided they were going to do email directly to the President of the United States to show up the flotilla function. Now, it's innocuous, and it's probably innocent, and the intentions were probably good, but there's a chain of leadership. If you want to invite a local elected official that you do not know personally, on a personal friendship basis, okay, to an event, there is a chain of leadership through the legislative chain, through the Coast Guard Auxiliary. There's a formal process to invite a political person. I'll give you that as one of many examples. You would not even think, I would hope, of sending an email to Admiral Nash directly complaining about something, right? There is a chain of leadership, and this is just one that came back through 8th District from Admiral Nash. It wasn't us, it was in Division 1, just so you know. But just to give you an idea. Great example, jumping the chain.
I would like to think that that was a member that didn't know about the chain. That's
Well-
what, and I believe there are many of them out there. That's what I
Yeah.
would like to think.
Many people, maybe not in this room, I mean, how many people here have prior military experience, or prior military, right? So we understand the chain of command and all that, and it's drilled into our heads in basic training, officer training. Many people come to the auxiliary, don't have any concept of that, right? It's like they don't understand the purpose of a chain of command, they've never been trained in the chain of command. So I think when you deal with a new member, even members of your existing flotilla, you need to get that mentality across to them. They just can't get on the phone and call Captain Whitehead, because they want to go patrol this weekend. And Gary said no, okay? But these are the kind of things we need to train folks on. Cap specific one from, we all know who this is. This is Todd, right? Wilson, the OTO, okay? The DIROCs, our DIROCs now, by the book, you know, recommending he submit his offer for use through his chain of leadership, through his SOI, okay? People were submitting their offers for use, not going through the OP channel like they're supposed to. This happens with MA. How many times have we gotten comments and requests from either vices or flotilla commanders or whatever sent directly to DIROCs about some materials issue, and I get CC or BCC back from the OTO saying, please follow your chain of leadership. I am not reading any emails about materials that do not come through the SOMA. So if you're not a materials officer, don't even think about emailing the DIROCs or Mr. Todd on a materials issue. Don't even think about it. He won't take, and a materials issue, he won't take my email. Seriously. It's got to go from Bob Rupert. So funny. This happens to a number of different functionaries, so keep in mind how you do things. And when you do respond to people, this is one of his better ones that I didn't bother sending back to the member. It's called being the filter here. He was in a mood, but that's not unusual. Good morning, sir. Notice the proper greeting. I ordered high-impact PFDs as requested by the division commander. Very respectfully, notice the closing. Most important, notice identify who I am. So this was an email that was sent directly from a flotillance division, directly to DIROCs, about the high-impact PFDs, okay? And of course, the immediate response was, do me a favor, I've already done this. So when you send emails to official people in their capacities, make sure they're formatted respectfully and properly, or you will get a response from this. From his perspective, I understand it completely. He's just trying us to make sure that he reinforces proper military decorum in the chain of command, how you communicate between subordinates and superiors, okay? You don't go to him and say, "Hi, Jim, this is Joe, flotilla of XX, I need this, have a nice day." But this is what people do, right? This is how people write. You say, "Good morning," you do the greeting, whatever the greeting is. Concisely, what it is you're asking, very respectfully, and who you are. Members, basic things like emails. Don't accept emails from your members written in a first-person familiar. Make sure your membership writes emails to the flotilla vice commander and the flotilla commanders and your staff officers with the respect of the office, okay? Make sure emails are properly formatted. Every email should end with a proper closing and who you're addressing it to, and keep it concise. If you train them early, okay, we'll get them there. So that's really kind of all I had to say on the topic. The chain of leadership is a very simple function as long as you understand, how it follows. The flotilla commander doesn't need to know every trouble going on down in the publications program, right? Unless it's brought to his attention. There are chains of leadership that deal with functions, and there are chains of leadership that deal with personnel and administration. Keep the distance between the two, keep the communications professional. And if you're not getting the answer you need, yeah, it's okay to jump the chain because you need to solve the problem. And solve the problem with the lowest level you can. Questions? How simple is that?
Okay, should we take all right, it's up to you. We can either take a break now, or we can keep it going.
Press on, press on.
Press on, press on. Okay. I don't know if you've been paying any attention to the agenda. Have you been paying attention to the agenda I laid down? There you go. That's why I said that, because I wanted to see if anybody picked it up. Yes, I did. And you know why I did? Because I made room for Mr. Reynolds, because he stopped in and he took his time today. This is a Saturday and he's not working today, and he has family things going on, and I kind of changed it around so that they would fit into that. Okay, Frank, why don't you do the legal for us?
Frankie, where'd I find the legal on your stick?
Is it on yours? Oh, yes, it is.
For the rest of it?
It's that white and gray one that you gave me.
What's the A?
That's your stick.
We're crying out loud. Go down to,
Legal is, that PowerPoint down there says legal. Okay, yeah, hang on a second. That should be working. Right here.
I'll give you a good example about what Chuck was talking about. I wrote a couple of emails to somebody a long time ago trying to get an answer. I went up the chain respectfully. I said, "You're not answering the chain." I'll go to the next person. Went to the next person. He said, "Still can't get an answer." He went to the third person. Third person wrote back and said, "The reason he's not answering the phone is because his mother just died and he's out of the state." And I went, "Shit." That was a quote on my part. So before you jump, just think about other people might have other problems. That's the reason I'm not answering, okay? So before you call somebody a butt, think about it. It was a very important lesson. I'm gonna hurt your heads today to finish this part of it up. You all know what your jobs are right now. Now I'm gonna show you what happens if you don't do your job, or some things you shouldn't do as your job. This is all taken from the auxiliary manual. It was written by a district staff officer who was a legal person in another district, okay? He took the time to go through the entire auxiliary manual and pull out all the legal matters, so that you can think about it in English. As you know, most of the stuff is pretty convoluted, and you end up with a definite maybe most of the time. Well, he was trying to get a little bit closer to it. I'm not an attorney, I don't mean to be. I'm gonna give you some of the stuff that he said. And remember, he was a registered attorney to start off with. I have a copy of the slides for you. I have the detailed letters that accompany each subject for you, so you don't have to write notes or anything, all right? They're pretty self-explanatory. But it's some things you've never seen before, and I want you to think about it. This is not one of them. You wanna play this now?
Yeah, I'm on the wrong thing.
No, you can click that.
Oh, click.
If you haven't heard this, this is what we use in our classroom, but it's a good time for a break, so.
Navy Chief speaking.
This Yakinich?
Sure is.
Listen, my name is Roy D. Mercer. I got a bone to pick with you. My boy Raymond was down there about a month ago. He's a senior in high school and he wanted to sign up for the Navy, and you told him he's too scrawny and needed to go home and work out.
No, I would not have done that.
That's what he said. You told him he's too scrawny, and he come home and he charged up about $200 worth of dumbbell and about $100 worth of protein powder. And that ain't the worst of it. He was in there trying to get them dumbbells put together, and his little pet hamster, Liberace, got loose and was down on the floor. And it ain't funny. He dropped a 20-pound weight on him and squished him. Squished him, yeah. Little Liberace. It ain't funny. So I need about $300 and a new hamster. So I'm coming down there and whooping somebody's ass. You think it's funny? I guarantee you I'm gonna swell one of your eyes up. You look like Popeye. Go ahead, get it out of your system. I got a little boy over here tore it up. He'd won the 4-H talented pet contest the last 2 years in a row with Liberace. Mama made him a little blue sequin jacket, and Raymond taught him how to set it a toy piano and pound on it with his nose. It ain't funny. Now I want you to call up his 4-H teacher and tell him why Raymond ain't gonna have a pet in the show this year. How'd you like me to jerk a half-hitch in your ass? How long's it been since you had a good old country ass whooping? But this year, the Blue Ribbon is gonna probably go to Jimmy Charlene's ping pong playing parrot tonight. He's not gonna buy into this. I know he isn't. You call his 4-H teachers and explain all that.
Nothing to do with nothing.
Nothing to do with it.
Except for the half hitch. I did hear something about half hitch.
I keep laughing every time I hear that.
I could just see that Navy recruit sitting at his desk in his starched white uniform, and laughing.
Well, all that to do with legal responsibility.
Yeah, there you go.
That's legal responsibility if you squish his hamster. Okay, according to the manual, every auxiliary member is personally responsible to become familiar and adhere to the rules and regulations that's printed in the book. Elected leaders are also responsible with that above statement. But you must ensure that new information is passed out to your members as well. And Chuck was just talking about filtering this stuff. Be careful if you filter the stuff out by ignoring it completely. If you have members that this stuff applies to, make sure that you pass it on. It's your job to filter it, that's absolutely true. If you don't have anybody doing that, for example, ATONs, because you're in an air flotilla, for example, and you don't do ATONs, you don't need to pass that down. But if it's something about a propeller, and that's important to your members, and you don't tell them, and they crash and burn, you're personally responsible. So be careful how you filter. Here's the biggest problem we have. You are probably not aware of this statement. You have to be assigned to duty to get the Coast Guard to cover you. I have to be honest with you, this is not something that's done in this division. Not something that's done nationally. It is a requirement for us. But the average flotilla does not do this. They do a very poor job.
Then we have one flotilla here that I know of that isn't average, because it's done all the time.
For some people.
Six 11, Alvin told me this morning that he has a letter or something that you do for any
Assignment to duty letter.
assignment to duty letter.
Okay, the Coast Guard will benefit you by giving you coverage for medical, educational, survivor protection, and also coverage for protection from personal liability, if you are assigned to duty. Okay? First thing you have to do is you have to conform to the minimums established by the Commandant and the Auxiliary Manual. And the minimums are found in the auxiliary and the operational manuals. For example, you can't go out and say I'm a crew member without being through the qualifications that the book calls for. You can't be a phony crew. There's a difference between people that are qualified and people who are assigned. Every member who passes the VE exam and does their 5 supervised vessel exams are qualified as a vessel examiner. Okay? Not a problem. To be covered to go out and do vessel exams, you damn well better tell somebody. Okay, and that has to be your flotilla commander, your flotilla vice, or in this case, the flotilla staff officer in charge of vessel exams. You better tell them where you're gonna go and what you're doing. Not in great detail, just say, I'd like to do vessel exams this week, and here's where I'm gonna be. He makes a note of it, that's it, we cover. You go out and do it on your own, and a truck backs over you, and then you call up the flotilla commander, and he says, did you know he was out doing vessel exams? Hell no, I didn't know a thing. You just covered, no coverage at all. Now, if you want that responsibility, be my guest, but that's the way the book works, from a legal standpoint. If you've ever had to deal with Coast Guard Informational Services, CGIS, they look for every reason to turn down a claim. That's a standard operating procedure for any outfit. The Coast Guard is extremely good at it. These are their rules. Failure to conform is your responsibility. Okay, who's going to assign you to do that? Who's got the authority? The patrols, the only person that can give you an authorization to go on a patrol is the Coast Guard. You got a Coast Guard order on a piece of paper. Okay? For non-active, non-patrol activities, the flotilla, the vice commander, or the appropriate staff officer. If you're doing public affairs, you call a public affairs flotilla staff officer and say, I'm gonna have a table set up at the booth this weekend, for example, okay? Who cannot assign you to duty? We have 3 people in this room who cannot, 4 people in this room who cannot assign you to duty, okay? Pat cannot assign you to do anything. Chuck, as the division captain, cannot assign you to do anything.
Commander, it's changed, it's changed.
But that's what I'm trying to say, the division and the district has no authority over to make you assign you to do anything. The only person that can do that is the flotilla. You'll see as we go through this whole thing today, it always goes back to you guys are doing the work. You guys are the ones in charge, not everybody else. Everybody else exists to support you. Don't ever forget that. It's not the other way around. Much as we like to have it the other way around. That's not the way it works. If you're not assigned to duty, you're not covered by the Coast Guard insurance. You know, we have flotilla members who die in line of duty every year. And hopefully they were assigned to duty before they get killed. You also have to be involved in your particular aspect of your job. For example, qualified and assigned and acting within reasonable parameters of the assigned mission is said to be within their scope of, what the hell does that mean? Okay? I'll give you an example. A VE performing a safety check is involved in an accident while backing a boat down a ramp. Okay? Backing a boat down a ramp is not part of a vessel examination. Okay, he was out there official on duty. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. That's not part of his job. Okay, a small distinction, yes. But he's not covered because he was completely out of his scope of employment. So if you say you're gonna do something, stick with what you're supposed to be doing. Things you haven't thought about before.
It's because people wanna be nice, and I've seen that on the
Absolutely.
ramps. They wanna be nice with the boaters, and it's like, oh, I'll help you tie your boat up, well, I'll help you, I'll guide you in, and you're standing behind the boat when they're backing it in. And this happened, where several years ago, where the auxiliarist got run over, because he was just being a nice guy trying to help. Yeah, come on down, and he got run over. And because he was not doing just vessel exams, because he was doing what he was doing, the Coast Guard did not cover him. Did not cover him.
Yeah, he was pretty badly hurt. He had a busted up inside. They wouldn't cover him with a 10-foot pole. Got another problem. The book, the manual specifically excludes flotilla meetings and social functions from any coverage at all. They consider that our duty station. Okay?
Say that again?
Flotilla meetings are considered part of your duty station. In other words, you're assigned to that flotilla,
Right.
you have to go to meetings, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
It's not part of the coverage for Coast Guard. It's an internal thing with you guys, not the Coast Guard. Flotilla social events, for example, are not considered a Coast Guard function. You won't be covered. Now, how do you get around that? Because we all know that we are going to a flotilla meeting in uniform, okay, specifically for the Coast Guard. Okay. I'm not an attorney here, so this was his suggestion.
There is one, and I see him already.
And I've been saying this for a long time. You schedule an official member training session with every flotilla meeting. When you send out your agendas, make absolutely sure that one of the things, if it's the only thing, I don't care, one of the things you put on that agenda is member training. Because let's face it, you don't hold a meeting unless you're training somebody. It's not phony claim, it's actual what we're doing. Now, they will cover training. They will not cover a social function.
Now, in terms of that assignment to duty,
Mhm.
like the letter, sending out the agenda is essentially that
Yes?
assignment to duty?
Yes. Especially if there's training involved, absolutely, absolutely. You must add the training session to the meeting agenda. It's gotta be in writing someplace. When you send out to your members, make sure that you send out an email so it's covered. It says we're doing training, we're doing this, this, and this, and this. The simplest way to do that is make up your agenda and send it to everybody. That gives everybody an idea what's gonna happen, and it's also a notice that they're gonna be trained. Send it out to all your members. If you're gonna have nothing but a Coast Guard auxiliary picnic, try to have some kind of auxiliary business during the meeting. Not training necessarily, but some kind of business. You try to keep it on the up and up all the way through this. I'm not asking anybody to cheat anything. Okay? But we do train in every meeting automatically. Write it down for crying out loud. You may get coverage for it. I have a whole bunch of stuff on boat patrols, but I haven't got the requirements completed yet. We have a new operational person. When I get with him, we'll get the whole list out to you, then we'll have another meeting, and we'll give you all that information about those. Where's our signs?
Oh, I put them in the car already.
Don't have to worry about it. We'll do it at the next meeting.
Well, the next one will be the division meeting.
It doesn't matter. This is one we use in our class, when we cover the part about ATONs in the ABC class.
Trying to quick it can change.
Letters.
Okay, well, we'll do it again later.
Back it up one more time.
Usually letters, quickly letters.
Click it once and click it twice.
I lost it.
It's not like, where's it not?
I don't know, I lost it.
I forgot it.
Drop that weight on that apple.
Right on my mouse.
liver on you, you chop the meat out of it again. You're down the bottom, have a couple of them.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's not gonna go because it's,
It's,
Pick the words. Is that file in your,
Yeah,
on your memory stick?
sorry. Don't worry about it. Last thing I'm gonna give you is something on auxiliary agreements. Forgot, I'm gonna put it to you as bluntly as I can. Don't any of you sign a damn piece of paper with anybody. How's that for legal
That
advice?
sounds like good
Okay,
advice.
you put a piece of, you sign something, you are personally liable for it. There's a whole set of procedures that you are supposed to do before you sign something. As far as you're concerned, don't sign it. Send it to somebody else to sign first. If you sign something and it's not authorized by someone above you, you've just signed a personal agreement with that particular person.
We sign our Russell Jam, our
It's not an
checklists,
agreement,
just showing that we made a.
yeah. You want an agreement?
that's an offer for use form.
Yeah, if you want an agreement to go use a rule like this place, and you wanna sign for it, guy says you gotta sign for it, that's what we're talking about. Don't you sign for that,
It's like I found a meeting place for my flotilla,
that's common, yeah.
and they weren't gonna charge us any money, we met there free, they wanted their contract though. I couldn't sign I was flotilla commander, I couldn't sign the contract. I had get the contract, send it to legal, I sent it up the chain to my division vice commander, and then he sent it to, it got to legal.
So you're saying it
Legal
can't be
read the
signed just by
contract.
us?
Sent it back and said need to make 2 changes, they made them, sent it back up, legal signed it, it came back down signed, then I could sign it.
Right.
I want you to make that point, so
But
don't forget it. If
that's
you
all
sign
I'm-
it, you're personally responsible.
Right.
You better have somebody else's signature on it first, it's in the auxiliary, and you can sign underneath it. If your signature's on it by itself and nobody else, you're personally responsible.
And the thing was, they were letting us use this facility for free. However, they made no mention of the handicap ramp and accessibility that they had for parking and this and that. And because there was no mention in that contract, had I signed it, then I would have been in trouble with the Coast Guard for having meetings at a place